The weight system. The weight system consists of a set of weights made of lead, which can be easily released and abandoned if it is necessary to assume greater buoyancy. For example, on the surface, if you get very tired. The traditional weight system is based on a nylon belt about 5 centimeters high, fitted with a metal or plastic end buckle. The weight belt buckle must be of a quick release type, which can be operated with just one hand. When scuba diving, it is positioned at the level of waist, so that with the reduction in the thickness of the wetsuit at depth, the belt does not slip down onto the hips. When freediving, the abdominal area around the waist must be free in order to allow effective diaphragmatic breathing. So the belt is positioned lower down on the hips. For this reason, freedivers prefer to use an elastic rubber belt. The elasticity of the rubber is able to compensate for the decrease in volume of the suit during the dive, allowing the belt to stay in place during the dive. Lead weights of different shapes and sizes from 0.5 to 2 kilograms each are threaded onto the belt, even if the ideal is to distribute the weight symmetrically using 1 kilogram weights. The belt should not be too long. You will certainly be wondering how many kilograms of weight you will need to use. It is impossible to calculate it first, as there are too many factors that affect the calculation. If you imagine making a free dive, you'll be able to understand how the buoyancy varies during the phases of the dive. On the surface, your buoyancy will be slightly positive, and you will have to overcome this with a pike dive so as to start the descent. During the descent, the pressure increases, compressing the air in the lungs and the gas bubbles in the wetsuit, and the thickness of the suit will decrease. The volume of the chest and the volume of the wetsuit are reduced. Ultimately, you displace less water, and your thrust towards the surface will decrease, with a consequent loss of buoyancy. At a certain depth, depending on the amount of weight used, you will find yourself in a neutral buoyancy zone. This depth is called the depth of neutral buoyancy, and you will neither be pushed upwards towards the surface nor downwards towards the bottom. Typically, you will have to adjust your weights so as to reach the condition of neutral buoyancy at around 10 meters of depth. During the ascent, the volume of air in the lungs and of gaseous bubbles in the wetsuit increases due to the reduction in the pressure, and thus giving you more and more buoyancy. However, your buoyancy will remain negative, and in order to ascend again, you will have to fin until you reach the depth of neutral buoyancy, around 10 meters. Of course, if your dives are limited to just a few meters deep, your depth of neutral buoyancy may vary. Your PSS instructor will explain how to determine the correct amount of weight. The density of the water in which you dive also influences the buoyancy. Salt water is denser, therefore heavier than fresh water, for the same amount of water displaced. In the sea, you will receive a greater thrust than in a freshwater lake, so you will have greater buoyancy. To counteract the increased thrust of salt water, you need to add more weights to your weight belt. The difference is about 3% of your total weight, wearing full equipment, including weights. Remember to record the amount of weight you use for each dive excursion in a logbook, so it will be easier in the future to choose the right amount of weight in every situation. In any case, you must check the amount of weight at the beginning of every freediving excursion.